Today we're diving into the incredible story of Faisal Movers. Seriously, it's a classic underdog tale. 5 brothers, just one bus, and a vision that was big enough to take on an industry giant and completely change the game for transport in Pakistan.
And it all really boils down to this one simple but super powerful idea. It's this philosophy that you don't just wait around for opportunities to show up. No, you go out and you create them, especially when it feels like all the doors are closed.
And this is where it all kicked off. Not in some fancy boardroom with a ton of investment, but in Sargodha, with a single, solitary bus and a dream that, let's be honest, probably looked impossible to just about everyone else at the time.
So, to really get how they pulled this off, we have to go back to the very beginning, to a huge crisis that started it all. You see, this wasn't some casual business choice they made. It was a decision that came from being right on the edge of total failure.
For years, the family business was in cargo transport, and it was doing just fine. But then, around the early 2000s, big economic policy changes hit, and demand just fell off a cliff. Suddenly, costs were skyrocketing, their income was practically cut in half, and the entire business was about to go under. But while everyone else was closing up shop, the brothers saw one last bit of financing not as a safety net, but as a launch pad. They made a massive pivot. From moving goods—
Man, those first 3 years were just a brutal fight for survival. Think about it. They had one single bus on a route that was already dominated by a big, established player. They had zero money for advertising, so they had to rely completely on people just telling their friends. Every single month, with costs for fuel and everything else going up, it must have felt like they were just one step away from having to shut it all down.
But it was right in the middle of that struggle that they found something huge, a gap in the market that the biggest company out there had totally missed. This was their big aha moment.
Okay, so you have to picture the scene back then. Daewoo Express was the undisputed king of the road. They offered this amazing, premium, non-stop service with their own private terminals. It was a great experience for sure, but the ticket price was so high that it was basically out of reach for most people. And that's what the brothers saw. They realized that everybody wanted that luxury, but almost nobody could actually afford it. And that was their opening.
So this led them to a formula that was honestly incredibly simple, but totally revolutionary. They figured they didn't need to invent something brand new. They just needed to make the existing premium experience affordable. Their whole strategy could be boiled down to this: give people the same comfort and the same nonstop service as the leader, but do it at a price that doesn't break the bank.
So, they had the idea. Now, let's look at how they turned that simple thought into a full-blown attack on the industry giant. This is where the strategy literally hit the road. Their first big gamble was to put 2 of their buses on a dedicated non-stop route. And this was a huge risk, right? If this failed, they could have lost everything. But then something amazing happened. Passengers started getting to their destinations on time without all those annoying stops along the way, and people were genuinely shocked. Word of mouth started to spread like wildfire. And that first taste of success was just the beginning. By 2008, they weren't just surviving, they were actively taking over routes that everyone thought belonged to Daewoo. Then, in 2011, they made their boldest play yet. They launched on the Lahore-Rawalpindi motorway, a route Daewoo had owned for over a decade. This wasn't just business as usual. This was a loud and clear declaration that a new king was coming. All right, so as they got bigger and more famous, a new problem popped up, one that every successful company faces: copycats. Dozens of smaller companies started trying to do the exact same thing. But their solution to this was, well, it was unconventional and totally brilliant.
So they had a choice to make. What do? Do you get into a messy, expensive fight with every single little competitor that pops up, draining all your time and money? Or do you just change the rules of the game completely?
Their answer was just a pure power move. Instead of fighting their rivals, they bought them. That's right, they went out and acquired well-known competitors like Sharjah Royal Express and even the famous Bilal Travels, and just brought them under their own umbrella with new branding. This move was genius because it didn't just get rid of the competition, it built a whole family of brands that could serve every single part of the market. And their thinking about infrastructure was just as smart. While Daewoo was pouring money into these exclusive, high-maintenance terminals, Faisal Movers just embraced the chaos of the busy public bus stations. Why? Because that's where the people were. And then, when they eventually did buy a major terminal, instead of making it exclusive, they rented out spots to other bus companies. This created a brand new stream of income and guaranteed that their terminal was always packed with potential customers. So we've seen all these smart, strategic moves. But how do they actually add up to total market dominance? Let's break down the keys to their incredible victory.
First off, their pricing was absolutely surgical. Look at the high-end business class. They're right there with Daewoo, basically the same price. But look at their main executive class. They were a whopping 30% cheaper. For the average traveler, that decision became a total no-brainer. Why would you pay so much more for basically the same trip?
But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about being cheaper. It was also about being more comfortable. While Daewoo was packing 45 seats onto their buses, Faisal Movers put in only 20. That meant way more legroom, more personal space. It's a small detail, but on a long bus ride, it makes a world of difference.
And finally, there was the sheer convenience. On their busiest routes, a Faisal Movers bus was leaving every 25 to 30 minutes. Think about that. It completely took away the stress of having to book way in advance. People knew they could just show up and get on a bus pretty quickly. It turned the service from a hassle into a utility you could just rely on.
And if you need any more proof of just how successful they were, just listen to this. This quote comes from the chairman of Daewoo Express, their biggest rival. He himself admitted that nobody else had ever come close to achieving the scale that Faisal Movers did. I mean, when your biggest competitor openly admits you won, you know you've done something incredible.
So at the end of the day, this story is way more than just a business case study about buses. It's a powerful lesson, right? It shows us that the hardest times aren't just things to get through, they're actually teachers. The biggest crises often hide the biggest opportunities, just waiting for someone brave enough to find them.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. The entire Faisal Movers empire was built out of a challenge that looked completely impossible. So it kind of makes you wonder, what's that impossible challenge in your own world that might just be a hidden opportunity in disguise?